Okay, so I'm gonna do this end of day recap before I trade Asia or tapered it. So what do we do today? Today, honestly, is it's kind of a hard day. Because it's a reversal day, and it's like, what did we do prior, right? We have an inside bar. Well, we got to think about the bigger picture. NQ is extremely bearish and hit this relevant low, which there's nothing below it. So it definitely makes sense to, especially since yesterday left this gap open on all assets. So it kind of does make sense to return back into the range, especially since ES to give a higher time for retracement rate. Especially since ES held this low, and then we created a strength switch second stage S&P at the reversal. Here, which we formed that pretty early on. You can just do that. Or it's kind of weird, but that was technically the strength switch here with YM, as you can see. All assets are extremely bearish as well, so this actually could have been a clean Asia trade too. I didn't even, but like I said, it was kind of hard to determine what we're going to do, but it does make sense to go higher. Especially since if you think the weekly, if we're going to continue lower from pre-weekly range, then early on, ideally this week, open higher at first into EQ. What's around EQ from pre-week high to pre-week low? This gap, right? And exactly what we do, right? Monday, Tuesday, retraces higher. So think about that as well. Makes sense. But going down to the far, let's go to Asia because I didn't even try to backtest this. I'm curious what we did. Is that too low? Okay, so it was pretty low, which is yeah, we did take that on Q, but we didn't take it on YM. Right here, technically, that would be the string switch. And obviously, you're gonna want to trade NQ as the stronger asset. So we did take this on YM here. So it looks like that. So let's check out this. 1800 opened up lower immediately. Took that out. Formed that string switch. It would have been. I mean, it's pretty spaced out in S&T on NQ. So I mean, you could trade the reversal. I could trade the reversal, right? Because I have the string switch at the reversal. But put one. But the reversal looks like it's has. And we create C2 here. So I mean, yeah, the V-shape's as. So I mean, if you wait for displacement rail, yeah, you can listen that. So you would have to wait for displacement rail. And then we decided to resweep. It's interesting. Creating like its own string switch here. This is the string switch on the hard time frame, but we're creating string switch and to confirm that string switch in a weird bit. We create a second stage PSP. So in reality, if I'm going to trade NQ as the leading asset away from the universal sequence, I would have to confirm that with second stage PSP has to be full, which we don't get here. Or it has to be a string switch second stage PSP, which we don't have, so I can't trade that. So I gotta make a way for displacement. Again. There it says. Okay, here. Well, no. Create SMD fill, but again, that's not valid for me. So yes, take. So that way, one more displacement, and we don't really give anything. Seriously. That is technically second stage PSP S&P fill, but we have no V-shape away. We decided to resweep. But we hold the S&T and we create a strength towards the second stage PSP at 1 AM, so that would be valid to take. But during 2200. So this would confirm the universal sequence, now the 1 hour and 30 minute, which would be the GXT line sequence. So the 1 hour and 30 minute, wait, oops. 4 hour, the daily is aligned. You could say the day opens lower first, but I would say it's more open high. So that's pretty valid. And we have super clean feather smooth. The highs clearly with clean V shape, clearly reaching for that gap, obviously. So let's see if there's a nice V shape. There is, yeah. I'll take another 5 minute. Stop the rejection block. Shoot for that 3R. Right when price created this CICSD, I can go break or draw my stop to this low, reducing my risk by half. Because that low is, when we create it here, is if we were to measure this range, it's in OT. You wouldn't really want to see, typically when we retest the CSD and create the ICSD, typically don't return back below that. You wouldn't really want to see price come all the way back down into here anyways, right? To go higher would be crazy. And then when price expands higher like that, I'm probably gonna go break even. Yeah, I'd go break even. I wouldn't really want to see price come back down there, so I'll go break even for sure. And it would have played out. So that was a valid trade during 2200 though. Honestly, pretty easy draw, pretty easy for where price is going to reach, for what price is going to do, and everything aligned and was confirmed. So I mean, that was actually clean, not long. But it's pretty late in the night, so I usually don't stay up that late. I value my sleep. I usually wake up, like today I woke up at like 2:30. And honestly, it's like the perfect time for me because I like to get stuff done before I tapered. But yeah, so that was that. Going in, this is London. Going into London actually does reach this high, but it's not the daily gap. But we do create SMT with YM here. Yeah, it's pretty spaced out SMT. And it's great to see like YM. Yeah, all all assets did V-shape higher, especially ES. So I mean, it could break, right? Especially since ES is forming that SMT within OT. So it looks like for SMT, all the boxes are checked for that, but it could also hold. And what we're like, obviously what we need to see is strength switch at the reversal. And it's a pretty irrelevant time. We do form, I think this here, formed at 9:30, but it makes sense why price clearly is failing to manipulate it because of the daily gap. Right? So as long as we hold it, which clearly we are, with YM, right, and then at 9:30 form this strength switch second stage piece, I think. Probably done. Yeah, no, we did here. Formed strength switch via swing high S&P. It was like this. And this is when I traded during the driver on YM. Because I was technically strength switch second stage of T. Although it's really just it is strength switching, but it's also YM just showing alternate weakness, right? It's like double sleeve S&P as well. Which I did talk about this earlier in my live tape read session, where I was talking about how because I was thinking about it beforehand too, and I like pretty much confirmed it when I was watching GXT for 50 minutes earlier this morning. before I started tape printing, and I realized like um, we should be using like I didn't like a couple days ago price form strength switching like YM in this case sorry is leading bearishly. So ideally it's YM switching strength momentarily bullishly, while these assets that are in premium ES and Q should be not sweeping out that high, right? Especially in Q daily, and that would be NQ switching momentarily bearish to catch up to YM. But then I thought about like what that really only matters if we're trading the lagging asset in continuation. And I think that's I gotta really think about that more. Because I mean really that's what we're I think that's what I was worried about beforehand. Um a couple days ago, whatever, what I've been realizing too is like that day specifically we created strength switching, yeah, but it wasn't like I was trading like ES as the middle asset to catch up to YM. So ideally ES switches bearishly like that. Well, NQ should do that, but instead it was S&T between the lagging assets. It was strength switching between the lagging assets, and the leading asset wasn't showing any strength switching, which is that's exactly what it is actually. So yeah, that mainly matters obviously with the lagging assets when you're trading the lagging asset in a continuation. But this is technically a strength switch with the ES um, at the reversal. So I traded this during the driver because we have the strength switch at the reversal. I mean, yeah, YM is the weakest asset. We're holding the SMT around EQ, so it's problem SMT. But so yeah, we have the strength switch at the reversal. It's problem SMT, and the daily supports the bears buy-ish, right? It opens higher first, so the daily profile supports as well, which is great. Especially today too. Like, there's no reason to go higher anymore, really, unless we're going to trade the line in continuation to break the S&P at the highest. But in reality, it makes sense to go lower because this is a very prominent level and NQ has no reason to go higher. But the daily supports, the 4-hour supports during 6 a.m., even the 6 a.m. 6-hour candle supports, which is great to see, and the 1-hour there supports. We create that clean V shape away. So like we create that swing switch with the ES right here. All last V shape away, and I take it on the 3-minute. Where I'll have to retest. And it looked so good so far. Like it looked fucking amazing. I thought I was gonna make a nice trigger. But I put myself with a rejection block. Or I think it was right here at first originally. I was shooting for a 3RR because that's where the current draw liquidity is pretty low. Pretty nice feather swings, right? You know, and it ran a 1.5, 1.8. I mean, I even trailed myself to here, so, but I was gonna shoot for that because I only risk, if I'm trading during the driver, I'm only risking half of what I normally risk, which I normally risk 300, so I was risking 150 here, and I was gaining like 500 around there. And then when price expanded away, I think I trailed myself to break even. Yeah, I wanted the CIC to form here, but it didn't form. And I seen that all assets were what was it? Something. Yeah, I just didn't like this PA. What else was it though? I forgot what else it was. Oh yeah, 9:30 closed like this, and the 10 a.m. opened up, and I was like, that's pretty shit. And the fact that we retraced back up into OT like this is not a bearish signature at all. You do not want to see that. So I was like, yeah, I don't really like it. Even though my risk, I was like right here. My stop was pretty much right here or below that. Even it was at the 15-minute rejection bar. That's right here. So you would not. This range should have held. We shouldn't be coming back up to OT like that. So I took off a break even. And then price goes higher. It would have taken me off. I didn't take off a break even. Good break take off for sure. Because it clearly looked like we were probably going to reset these highs, which means that this strength switch is invalid at that point. And maybe we do hold it. I thought that maybe we do hold it going into 10 a.m., but then 10 a.m. disrespected the like we had that large work size, so I can't trade 10 a.m. bearishly on YM anymore. Which is ideally I trade YM because it's the weaker asset, it's the overall it's the asset that's closer to the draw liquidity, right, and all that. So particularly we are kind of we broke this range push, right? So it'd kind of look like this here. So maybe we do hold it, you know. But the only way I'm gonna trust this now is if we just place away. We just don't do that. And then you see NQ go higher. Clearly not respect that when we close at 10 a.m. So at that point, what NQ is failing to manipulate this high. So now we can possibly trade the lagging assets in continuation, which if I'm going to trade any asset, it's going to be ES as the middle asset. What do I have to see? Strength switching. And we didn't get anything. We didn't get any gap. So at that point, either I'll wait for a gap or I wait for a strength switch second stage PSP or for price to, engineer a low within this range and manipulate that low and then create a strength switch second stage PSP away from that, or I'll wait for a gap. And I confirm that gap with strength switch has to be full, or any variant, like it could be a strength switch second stage PSP has to be full, or et cetera, right? But it just has to be full in the form of a strength switch, especially since NQ has no reason to continue hard. Or it could be a strength switch second stage PSP S&P full, where maybe the ES does trade into this gap, while the other assets don't, which it looks like YM won't. And maybe we close with a bullish candle. Well, maybe NQ closes bearishly. That would be a strength switch second stage PSP S&P full, and that would be bad. But instead, we actually create this strength switch second stage PSP S&P full, and it's not only in the form of strength switch to trade ES as the lagging asset in continuation, right, to confirm the asset sync, but also to confirm the universal sequence here. I think there was strength switch second stage here to lose with this low, yeah, with NQ. So we form that here, and then we form strength switching like that, intending displacement away gap, right? Now we're trading the lagging asset or middle asset continuation second to away from the universal sequence to break the stabilize, right? And then we have confirmation to that universal sequence with one of the two strength switch variants that I demand in order to trade the lagging asset continuation. And this is a very high probability. It's not only just an S&P full, but it's a second stage PSP S&P full, but it's also a strength switch in itself, right? We were once bearish via PSP, and now we're confirming that PSP with a strength switch S&P full. So once weaker, now stronger. So right when we create that, even YM is creating an ultimate strength switch because it's overall weaker. Makes sense. And so this is exactly what you want to see, right? This goes back to what I was talking about earlier. You want to see that strength switch form between the leading and the lagging assets, not between like say YM did trade in this low and maybe NQ didn't. Or yeah, you wouldn't want to see the strength switch form between the lagging assets like that if we're in continuation like this. So but drop down to the 5 and 3 minute, where we create the nice 3 minute where we didn't create any CSD away from that. Like we expand higher and we perfectly closed on the CSD itself on the opening price. So I wanted to, in order, a CSD is valid when we close above it. But although I know that GXT, I've seen him enter sometimes. He was very ballsy with it. I feel like I should have been ballsy with it here because it was so high probability, bro. But I wanted to wait for, although yeah, technically all assets are V-shaping higher initially like that. YM as well here, but I wanted to wait for YM and ES or YM and NQ to V-shape. But what I mainly wanted to wait for is that closure above the CSD, nice closure above it, and then the retest of the CSD. And instead of the price never retested the CSD, we just expand higher, and I wouldn't enter off this gap because the RR would be ass. I would have to put myself like mean threshold with the order block, and even then, it's really not that great of an RR. So renting's so high in the range, but it's valid. Which is kind of dangerous, but it's valid because the draw liquidity is super close, right? But Yeah, which we do have an hourly gap at 12. Well, also this is a new 12 6-hour opens at 12, which is literally perfect. So forgot to mention that. But which is typically when price resyncs. Um but we can fade that 12 p.m. 1 hour gap. That's the gap high is right here, right? Because of the strength towards second stage PSPS and be full on the 30 minute. But yeah, I wouldn't take that gap entry. So we had to take the ECSC entry. And so either entered here, decided I didn't because it kind of made sense. I could have been ballsy with it, but it was logical. Maybe I was being too mechanical with it. Um, but yeah, I was shooting for that nice 2.67 RR, which would have been enough for me. I would have been like 800, 900 bucks, or like 800 bucks. Almost 900, like 850, I think. So it would have been enough for me to pass my profit. But yeah, as you see, price just runs without me. Kind of bullshits a little bit below the high, but then it ultimately gets there. So yeah. So the driver entry was definitely valid. Could have, maybe I could have, partial if price reached a 2RR. I feel like there was no point on lamb because of how close we were to the draw. I thought it was a pretty easy draw. I thought we were going to reach it right away, but we didn't reach a 2R anyway, so it doesn't matter. But so yeah, very clean. I mean, fucking hell. I can't believe I missed that. Can't believe Price did that to me. But really doesn't matter. Honestly, I can care less. I'm just happy that I experienced it. And I don't know if I don't know. I really don't think. I think it was a valid pass. I really wanted that retest. I mean, I think that's fine. Since Price didn't retest it here, is it just ran without me. And sometimes it's gonna be like that. You know, you win some, you lose some. Sometimes you miss some, even when everything was correct and it perfectly, goes your way. You know, what can you do? Nothing. You just gotta accept it and forget about it and move on. So simple as that. So that was that. Metals was kind of clean too. We didn't really do shit though. Honestly, I'm not sure why. This was a clean trade here. It was actually valid. I didn't take it though because it was at 9:30 and I was trading YM at the time. Which, as you can see, this bias is opposing to the indices bias, and typically metals and indices they're kind of like a correlated market. They're correlated in a way. They don't have to be, but they in a way are. Um, and so typically you want to see them be in correlation, like they're biased. So that was one thing I didn't like, but so it makes sense why we decided to not go lower today. That kind of added to it, um, but I guess it was just the fact that all assets wanted to head higher, to retrace into this range, which is whatever. But I don't know. But anyways, see ya. Now it's Asia, so I gotta fucking tape Asia.